Welcome to the Room of Lives. I'm your host, Neil. In this final part of our conversation, my friend Behnam talks about the constant presence of death and illness growing up, and how it sped up the maturing of his perspective on life and mortality. We wanted to talk about, death, family illnesses, and the fact that both of your parents are in the healthcare service.
Yeah.
So dinner table conversations consisted of retelling hospital shenanigans.
Yes.
Let's take it from the top. Death. Yeah.
Death was like a present thing in my life growing up. There was a fair amount of illness in my family, and I think that had a really, really big impact on how I thought about things. Put things into perspective. Maybe not necessarily in a good way, but began the process of understanding how to rectify, really like silly, banal things like getting your like UTID at the beginning of a semester, rectifying that with like the fact that you're gonna die one day. like there's some spectrum that these sit on, and they're not in the same area. I think each encounter with that kind of matured me a little bit faster than I would have without exposure to that. And while it was kind of
in more concrete terms, though, like what deaths are you talking about?
Okay,
in my to share.
Yeah. When I was 12, my aunt passed away from cancer. It was metastatic breast cancer, so it was diagnosed, I think, in like spring of that year, and she passed away in October, so it was very swift. That was my mom's sister and her family. They've been, I think, the closest extended family, and still are, that we had growing up. So it was difficult to see how lasting an effect that kind of loss has. At the time, my cousin Julia was 18 when that happened. She had just gone off to college, and I think it was just really challenging for her. It really changed her, and so I kind of saw that. I was only 12 years old, so I didn't really have many tools with which to make heads or tails of that. But that kind of began to be the cloud over my extended family. That continued because my grandmother had Alzheimer's. She had it since I was like 6 or 7. I have few to no memories of her being totally lucid, and that eventually degenerated to where she died because she, I think, forgot to breathe.
Wait, does that actually happen?
I mean, I think there is eventually such a degree of degeneration that you like your basic bodily systems fail. I mean, she had definitely like lost the ability to speak, and yeah, so it deteriorated and really just kind of like took everyone down with him, because you're seeing, for my mom, she's seeing the person that was her mother for her whole life disappear right in front of her. Yeah. So this was the first time I was in the middle of the Bible Belt, but to me this idea that we have an essence or soul was really being challenged right in front of me. I was like, this model makes no sense in light of what I'm seeing this person become. That's, I think, that casts some severe doubt for me on the idea that we have souls that are extra material or something. She passed away when I was 15. A few months before that, my sister had been diagnosed with Hodgkin's, or no, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Or was it Hodgkin? I can't remember. She had cancer, and we found that out. That was my second year of high school, and so she had to drop out, and they caught it at stage 4, so it required some really aggressive chemotherapy. She went through 8 months of chemotherapy, but was eventually in remission. The year she dropped out for that year and then went back to school the next year, which is the year that I dropped out to do violin. That moment when I was in the shower scrubbing my head was a few days after I had gotten a call from my mom that my grandmother had passed away, and I couldn't make the funeral because I was in Czech Republic. So those were kind of the events that were like leading me to really seriously consider how I was spending my time and what was valuable versus what wasn't, and what was I going to think when it was my turn, how I'd done it, and if it was a good use of my time. And then the spring of that year that I took off, when I was playing a lot of violin, my sister and I were in a car accident. We were T-boned by a drunk driver who'd had like 8 drinks. I don't think any evidence that he even put on the brakes before he hit us. He was just like really, really drunk. And he hit driver's side where my sister was sitting. And she was in a wheelchair for 6 weeks. She had 3 hip fractures and a fractured shoulder, and I broke my nose, but it was just like muscle soreness. But I couldn't play violin. I had a lot of bruising on my arm. I couldn't extend my arm, so I didn't play violin for a few weeks, and that was just another sort of like confirmation that most that the world must just be chaotic, that there is not cosmic order to this. There's not like some sort of karmic balance. This is just like, most of it's just chance, and you just do with it what you do with it.
Yeah. I mean, what's bad is also good.
Yeah.
That means.
Yeah. No. Yeah. It's just like
it's
just
tying you down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't
No.
be an asshole, but I'll live a really good life.
It definitely for a while those were pretty desensitizing experiences. I was not the most emotionally open person. I don't think I talked about my sister's illness with anyone for like 2 or 3 years after that. I never talked about it with my family. I rarely, if ever, talked about it with her when I was in high school. I didn't talk about it with anyone. I just went about my business, which I think was very detrimental. Like I in retrospect, do that a lot could have been alleviated just by being able to verbalize and share with other people, whether it was like my mom and dad or just even people that I didn't know that well, sort of what that experience was like. So it was less just so internal, so sort of like encrypted. Yeah, I would say those were the main. Well, and then my grandfather passed away my senior year. So by the time before I was 18,
how's your sister now, by the way?
She is in pretty good health, actually.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Very glad to hear that.
Yeah, we are too. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, I am a big disbeliever in the cliche that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I think that's absolutely not true. I think some things are debilitating. I think, I mean, it's like obvious, right? It's like, what doesn't kill you make you stronger? Let me go chop off both your arms. Stronger? No, you're not. You might be able to gain the mental fortitude to get back on your feet and like still make something of your life. A lot of people won't. A lot of people, that's there are straws or logs that break their backs, and it's like that was really hard to watch. Was not necessarily the illness itself or even the treatment, which like chemo sucks and really wrecks with you. Fucks with you. Yeah. But getting back out of that and regaining some semblance of normalcy, I think is very challenging for a lot of people who go through that. And elusive even. So that was interesting to me, was it's like, okay, not only is the world kind of chaotic and things just kind of happen, but some things can happen that will just fuck you up. And I mean, I've since kind of like taken that a little bit further with that means that like there are still smart decisions I can make, right? Like it's like I would like to not die in a car accident, so I'll try to be as safe and responsible as I can be when I'm driving. That's what I can do to mitigate the likelihood of that happening. And also that because those things are true, they're just true. That doesn't stop me from, regardless of whatever hand I'm being dealt that day or that month or that year, trying to turn it into something good. Because that goes back to the agency thing. That's the power that I have.
Or that you appear to have.
That I appear to have. or that if I'm pre-programmed to have, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so those I think were really formative to me in I guess growing me up. I don't know. It changed me a lot. I think I would be a very different person if my grandparents were still alive and my sister had never gotten sick. And if my aunt had never gotten sick, I'd be a very different person.
That's interesting that you speak of death and illness in this way, because I think I've always had a very uncomfortable relationship with death. Just like a refusal to have any kind of relationship.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Which, I don't know, I guess has changed to a slight extent, but I wonder how much.
Well, I mean, it takes so many different forms for me too. I think I sometimes worry. I feel like I'm at my best when I'm most aware of my mortality. I feel like that is the only thing that I've seen consistently contextualize things in a way that allows me to be brave, compassionate, and unattached to things, which is kind of scary to me because like I don't want to always be cognizant of death. It's a really not fun thing to constantly be thinking about.
Yeah.
But I think in the right light, it has actually like been a really helpful thing. It was like one of the things I think that made it seem worthwhile for me to drop the violin and ask if there's another way to live my life, because I was like, I actually like am very well aware that like 20 years down the road is not guaranteed. 5 years down the road is not guaranteed.
Yeah.
And if I make it 15 years down the road, thinking that at 20 years down the road I'm going to be happy, and that's when it stops short, what a sick joke. Because that actually happens. Like, infants die, children die. People younger than me have died. People who've experienced what I would maybe call not that much and are older than me have died, and that was it. That was their life.
True. Yeah.
And
like I said earlier, the fact that you used to be a violinist in a conservatory, and you told me already how important their hands are, and the fact that I led you into this the social bike ride thing, and at the first turn you fall off your bike, it turns out you fractured your fingers. You seem to be just, I'm like, okay, I have fractured fingers now.
Yeah.
I'm very surprised by you were supposed to play the violin at the Molotov seminar next Friday, and I'm like, okay, we'll have to find a different topic for you. That's it. So yeah, that's very commendable, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. This maybe is where the healthcare professional thing comes into play.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I think my parents have seen so much death and illness. Like, it's like, well, that's like, we knew that was going to happen. So now what do we do? You know, it's like, they're just like ultra pragmatic about it.
Yeah.
In a way that like I thought was normal, and didn't realize that that's not normal until I met a bunch of other people. Yeah, because like to them it's like, okay, you crack up in your head, let's take you to the hospital, get some staples in it, you know.
Yeah.
And I think things with like physical health are kind of split for me, because that on one end it's like, I remember what you were saying at your Molotov seminar about feeling this inextricable like link or symbiosis between mental state and physical state. It's like, for me, in a lot of ways, I feel like I'm really just like, sack of meat with some wires, and it's like how I treat my body is really closely related to how I am in my mind, and how I feel and experience the world. So I do try and be cognizant about how I treat my body, how I eat, and those sorts of things. That's something that I've grown into. It's not, I think that's like another thing that like mortality, death, deciding what to do with my life has forced me to consider a little bit more. But at the same time, it's like I peaked at like 16, right? Like that was when my body was like most youthful, most like from now on it's just maintenance, right? Like
even if it feels like, so for example, I feel like locally I'm getting better because I started going to the gym like a couple months back, but it's like I'm trying to reach the extrema of a decaying envelope,
right.
And the moment the intersection happens, despite my best efforts, I'll start to I'm like, okay, this is the best it's gonna be. I just haven't reached the 100%. Well, what the 100% means is decaying steadily.
Yeah.
There will come a day when, despite just going 24/7 to the gym, my body is going to start degenerating.
Yeah. So in my mind, I'm like, I know that's going to happen, so I can do what I can to mitigate that, and I can do what I can with what I have. Like to me, it's like it's kind of pragmatic, right? It's like, well, what's my body for? Like, what am I using it for? Like, I'm using it to make music. I actually have so many different ways to make music now. It doesn't have to be on the violin. It doesn't have to be on the cello. It doesn't have to be on the guitar.
Yeah.
I can sing and then bump the octave down a few and invert it, and then it sounds like a blue whale or something. It's like that's all on the table. So, and I've got school going on and other stuff. So, yeah, this isn't like.
Yeah, it's not. Your fingers aren't a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't have to be, right? I've chosen not to make it. Like my life is deliberately in such a way that not that much rides on this one finger.
Yeah.
Because that's silly. I don't know. It's like, to me, it's like I know I'm not going to be just totally equanimous. That's just that's not going to happen. So instead, it's like, how can I?
But can you be okay with that?
Yeah, no. Instead, it's like I'm just gonna make the game easier. It's like that's what I am capable of doing. I've got the brain cells to be like, I understand myself well enough to know these are my limits, and I can make some deliberate choices about which of those limits I want to actively tackle and move and change. But the rest of them, I can not be an idiot and just set myself up for success and not failure. So like, one limit being like when I'm invested in only one thing and have no other activities or avenues that I explore that bring me joy and or might bring me money and that I'm invested in, like I'm gonna freak the fuck out if that one like gets put on the line, right? Like that's just like I'm not better than that at all.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Alright, fuck it, we're done.
Yeah, we're
No,
done.
well, anyway, thanks. No, I should make it that abrupt. Thanks a lot. Thanks for being on my podcast.
Thank you
It's
for
been a
having me.
long fucking ass podcast.
Yeah, what time is it? Oh, amazing.
Thanks for joining us today in the Room of Lives. Take care. Until next time.